Welcome to the Christmas episode. We're all here, here to have discussions around what's best for you in fitness, or maybe not. Whatever, it doesn't matter. None of this matters anymore, Robbie. Yeah.
Justin's screen looks a little blurry.
Yeah, Justin's
It
blurry.
does.
He's here. Thanks for letting us know, Amy.
That's what I'm here for. The details.
Yeah, I think he's good. Yeah, where do we want to start here? Gosh, what's top of mind for everyone right now? If not, I can start too. Holidays top of mind. I got something. I've been hearing this a lot lately, and I want to know what you guys think about this. Maybe 5 or 6 times over the last month where I've heard people like, "Oh, I'm just getting older." I know that's not holiday. They're just like, "Oh, yep, it's age." Yeah, wait until you're my age, and then they're like 5 years older than me or something like that. And my perspective on it most of the time is that they're just living like assholes, and it's caught up to them. I like that. I pulled that from Justin, who pulled it from James, right? Just living like an asshole. Like, you look at sleep and stress and all of that stuff, and I'm like, oh man, this is shit. Have you guys heard that? Have you guys?
Yeah.
Is anyone?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's funny. I just there's a block one coach. He tagged me a post. I think he may have just turned in his 30s. Someone's like, "Oh, when he was in his 20s, wait till you're in your 30s." Now he's in his 30s. Oh, wait till you're 40s. And then when you're 40s, wait till you're 50s. And it's always like, people are saying like how bad it's going to get, or like it's purely age related, right? It's something that's out of your control, right? Whereas the older you get, I mean, there are certain things obviously that change, right? Your margin of error probably gets smaller, right? You said live like an asshole. But I think a lot of people use it as an excuse or something that they say like it's all this control. I can't do anything about it. I'm just getting old. So what you gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes people are scared to even start something, maybe even at an older age as well. Talking to people seems like, well, like you said, Carl, I'm too old, or just wait. I think talking to people, getting them in here. I'm 37. I'm like, great. It's the age I was. It's never too late to start something to make your life better and healthier.
Yeah, especially if you haven't been doing anything, right? You've got some good potential there, relative to where you're at. Maybe not like you're not going to get towards your max potential, but you've got potential relative to where you are. So,
yeah, I have a couple of thoughts there. I think on the one hand, yeah, I mean, I would generally agree with what Carl said and what we're all saying. Like, I think genetics and age tend to be the two most overused kind of excuse. It sounds a bit harsh, but two most overused reasons within health and fitness sometimes for not adopting new practices. On the flip side, I would say something that I've increasingly conveyed to clients and just kind of made clear is so if we talk about like the similarities between like finances and health, there are a lot of interesting similarities, like save as much as you can. So when you need to spend, you have the ability to do so, but they're interesting disanalogies. So take for example, if you start like a savings account, you're just going to keep getting compound interest, and like eventually like the money's just going to keep growing on itself. With age, it's the reverse, right? So like the habits necessary to get you to, let's say, 15% body fat on the in body or what have you at age 20, well, now you're going to need to do that plus and that plus. So like you still need those same BLGs in line that you would need, but what someone's going to need to do at 26 to get to a particular performance goal or weight loss goal or health goal is now going to be, you need at least those. And to a certain extent, you've got to like Carl said, the margin of error decreases, and you almost have to you've got to have that foundation in place, but you almost have to do extra on top of that just to keep, I guess, things afloat. So yeah, that's something I've been talking to people about recently.
I guess in that case, like the compound interest, if you were to do it in your 20s, right? is more just like the habit building, right? Okay, I have these
Oh,
habits
yeah.
foundation, right? So now when I'm at my 30s or 40s, things change. It's not as much investment if I hadn't done that. So I guess that's where kind of like, it's not like you're accruing things. It's just like, all right, I got these habits. Okay, now I gotta do this a little bit more, do this. But yeah, that's, I mean, the finances is, I think, a great analogy. I think a lot of people can relate to that in numbers.
Yeah, and the habit idea, like, yeah, I mean, you're definitely, it is like savings in the sense of like, if you have good habits leading into it, it helps. But from like the biological perspective, like that which you need to do to like maintain a certain level of health is just increasing year by year, like still needing that foundational pyramid of the BLGs, but it may mean that the margin of error for, I don't know, 4 drinks a week in your 20s is now, 2 drinks a week in your 30s, 1 drink, you know what I mean? That type of thing.
Yeah, that's this is now catching up to you kind of thing. You just feel that margin of error squeezing in, and they think it's just age. It's age picking up. It's like, no, your habits are just catching up with you. And that, yeah, I hear it, and it feels like an excuse rather than a reason. I think a reason has some like substance to it and some factual nature around it and some like real thought around it. And excuse is that, like, you're just hiding behind your own, hiding from your personal responsibility on all of these other things, removing the links between you or adding links between you and this issue. So
yeah, and sometimes, like, I'm pretty sure most of us have experienced this. Sometimes as like a coach, we'll have people come in and say to us like, well, I could do this I could do such and such back in my 20s, you know what I mean? Like I could starve myself for the weekend and then I'd be fine the next week, and like, well, and then we have to like convey, well, this isn't then, like, we need to, there are new practices that we need to put in place just because that margin of error is smaller than it was before.
Yeah, this ain't that. I always use the oil change. I like that one. Like, yeah, you can go for a few months without getting an oil change, and then a year, and then 2 years, and then 3 years, and then eventually that shit's gonna break. So, yeah. Yeah. What else? So yeah, just like that, just had popped up in my head. Just shit that we hear a lot. It's like, I don't think that's correct. I don't think it's right. Liver King. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to talk about Liver King right now. And Justin and I were talking about this. We talked about like what's current right now, and I realized that like I schedule things to look like what is current in fitness and fitness trends and other things like that quarterly. But I'm not like all the time like digesting fitness information unless it's so loud that it's like right there on all of my channels, all of my shit. For those of you who don't know, who wants to explain Liver King? How would you guys explain Liver King? Let's do this. If you guys want to pop this up, I'm going to pull a picture of him up.
I mean, basically, like, right. So when he's a guy that was just talking about ancestral eating and has a supplement company, right? And was basically saying, yeah, you can tell there that his physique was the result of one, his ancestral lifestyle, right, as well as the organ meats and things like that, and the supplements he was taking, and was called numerous times for not being quote unquote natty, right? He adamantly shut down at any time it popped up, and then basically like his stack farmer, his stack got released as far as the drugs he's taking.
Yeah,
basically got called out, and it's like, yeah. So I mean, that's a very kind of quick TLDR. I know Rob, you looked into it, and Justin, I don't know if you guys have anything to add to it.
No, not really. I think it'd be maybe good to talk about, like, instead of just completely throwing him out because like, oh, he's on steroids, like there is some good things in his message that I think you still could pull from that, like as far as like just getting in daily movement. Like a lot of that aligns with basic lifestyle guidelines, like getting sunshine, like eating real food, eating organ meats, maybe not like a pound of liver a day. I don't know what he's actually doing, but yeah, there's some good stuff in what he was preaching, but the integrity piece was I guess not in his favor.
Yeah, so I told Robbie it was a shame that like I guess this one it came out this way with him, right? And it's like a bag tarnish because like you said, there is goodness in a lot of what he's talking about. But now that kind of like might shift people the other way from like, oh, okay, here's a big ancestral guy and he was a fake or a fraud. But there was a lot of good in there. He was just misleading people, a lot of people, on how he was achieving what he had.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what his marketing message actually looks like, or he's using this persona, this WWE persona, this is in my eyes right here, to say like, hey, BLGs and liver and these, and like, yeah, they're good practices, right? But also intentions, like these other intentions of like, also here's my supplement stack. And it's unsaid, like, you know, if you get these, this is the bad part about marketing, like get this stuff, this is what you're going to get right here. And that was the terribly misleading part. I think that wasn't his main intention. It wasn't the main thing that he was touting, right? It was, his intention was to sell $100 million in a month, was it? Or was it?
It was a lot. I don't know the number.
It was insane. Yeah. That's insane. I'm not even sure our members know who Liver King is or even care, really, now that I think about it.
I don't know anything about it until you guys gave me something.
I did listen to a podcast last Friday where it was since he came out about like taking steroids. And he talked a little bit about like who knows if he's being genuine or not, but that's a big driver in him using those PEDs was what he kind of reflected on, like having poor self-worth and having to, like, he feels like he needs to train excessively hard like 3 times a day, and so like his hormones were going out of whack because of that, so he was using that to kind of like duct tape his like need to like just kill himself in the gym every day. So I mean, maybe that's something that could be interesting to talk about as far as needing to train or overtraining or training for maybe what we would perceive as the wrong reasons.
I was just thinking that, Justin, like what a good topic. Overtraining, or coming into the new year, people have new goals and like, I'm gonna hit the gym, you know, in the morning and in the evening and in the afternoon, and like what's the take on what's too much for some people, what's too little? Or that 75 hard challenge was going on, you know, big time last year. Some people did it. I knew some people who tried it and failed, and what's the aspect on that? What do you think? Because I see it going around again.
Yeah, we can shift over. Yeah.
I mean, my quick thoughts. I mean, I think there's like anything, there's some good stuff in there, right? I think it's 2 workouts a day, like one in the gym, one walking. It's talking about same thing, some BLG stuff, right? Getting out there, sunshine, out in nature. I think like reading is a big part of it.
Gallon of water.
Gallon of water a day. So like there's things in it, right? But just from, like you said, a lot of people have done it and failed just because it is so much, and it's like that short-term intensity that we see that just doesn't last a lot. So maybe like a better thing would be to like pick a tenet of the 75 hard and work your way up to it and sustain that. I mean, that's kind of what a lot of our approaches are, like when we're working with our clients one-on-one or anything like that.
Yeah, I guess there is some good things. The 75 hour, there's some good stuff about it, and there's some good stuff about the Liver King. And I think in the way of when you try the 75 hard, it could be a lesson to be like, well, is it still working? 75, day 75, day 90, moving on down the line, did it give me what I needed out of it? And sometimes it's good to try something in a direction and be like, oh, you need to learn for yourself. I can't just sit here and be like, it's not gonna, no, you have to experience it. So you experienced it and you're like, oh, that wasn't it. And then at least says like, well, at least that's off limits. You'd hate to discount all of the practices within there, but the same thing with the Liver King. Maybe you're on his supplements and he came out and you looked at it and you're like, oh yeah, that's a lesson. Yeah, it's not working, yeah. Like to think I'd like to think that that's what happens. People look at the failures of those and reflect upon it and say, oh yeah, and then it pushes them in a better direction, or maybe you just like sit there and spin for years, right? That's what I like to think about that. Yeah.
How safe is a gallon of water a day for everybody? Like, I don't think I could have a gallon of water a day. Like that would.
Yeah. I think that would be, it's hard to say, like, depending on how much you're
Okay.
sweating and how much, all that stuff, but too much water can become unsafe. Let's put it that way. People have died. Do you remember that lady that died? Something to do with video game system.
It was,
They had like,
hold your wee for
Yeah.
a wee. You had to drink.
Yeah.
You couldn't go to the bathroom.
What?
yeah,
And the last person to be standing won a wee. And yeah, she got, I can't remember what the term is, but basically like her cells got overhydrated or something like that. But yeah, she ended up dying from it.
Yeah.
yeah,
Hyponatremia, I think.
There you go.
yeah.
Mm.
And it was like, well, yeah, was it like 2
Wow.
gallons or something like that?
A day.
No, just like right
Good
then,
sitting.
like slam 2 gallons in a sitting, and then
Jeez.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
insane.
So that is to
Wow.
say that, like, yeah, too much water can really fuck some shit up. I don't know if you chime in on that, Robbie.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting discussion. I mean, with the 75 hard or really any other challenge, the extent to which, for some people, especially around the new year, there's that aspect of, wanting a kick in the pants and a commit to something and, stick with it for a period of time. I think a useful thing for anyone to ask themselves is like, for any program you're thinking about doing, is like, what happens after?
Mm.
Like, let's say you do the 75 hard, like, what's the exit strategy? Because you're not going to be doing exactly the 75 hard for the rest of your life. Like, which things are you going to keep? Which things are you going to toss away? And I mean, this is a pretty big feature of, our nutrition coaching program here, as well as, like, might it be worth whatever challenge you're thinking of doing? Like, why not build up to it? Why not, work your way up to it? And habits that are going to sustain you for the rest of your life, that we talk about a lot in here, whether it's good nutrition or good hydration or good sleep or good fitness practices. Like, they're not going to have an end point. So, there's not necessarily a rush to do it in 75 days. And, and I get the communal aspect, I get the committing to something aspect, but the flip side of it is like, how do we get you to think in terms of the next 4 years instead of the next like 4 months, that type of thing. So
Yeah.
You know why I can't work up to it? It's because Cancun's in 3 weeks, Robbie.
right.
That's
Are you ready for a wedding?
I got 3 weeks, got to get ready for a wedding. I got to get ripped. Yeah.
Yeah, Brandon, I know you got a client that did a 75 hard and wanted to, I guess, was anything held on to from those habits in 75 hard for the long term for that individual?
Yeah, actually, let me pull up. I want to pull up the sheet of 75 hard, and I think it'd be helpful to read. I want a nice little accurate one here. Okay, 1 gallon of
picture
water.
day.
Yeah,
Read
25
10
minutes
pages.
of an indoor workout, 25 minutes of an outdoor workout, 80% healthy, and that's 80% healthy. There's a broccoli icon next to it, right? Like on that one, specifically the one I'm looking at. I see limited alcohol, but I'm thinking I'm looking at the wrong one. So we're gonna
Yeah,
kind
because
of
it's supposed to be like no cheat days for 75 days.
Yeah, so I think you're supposed to like pick a diet. It's your diet you're choosing, just no cheat days.
Right.
A gallon of
Mhm.
And I
water,
thought it
no
was like what
alcohol.
Carl, yeah, 45 minutes outside, 45 minutes inside,
Mhm.
yeah.
picture
That might
a
be.
day.
I've heard there's a soft version of it, and
Yeah.
that sounds like the soft version.
Yeah.
75 soft.
There's like a
I-
light. I think there's a light and a medium. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus. Well, it's the
I
same thing
think
people
I'd
do with
fail
Whole
on
30, right?
reading 10 pages a day.
Yeah, and you
Okay.
fail.
I would fail.
Follow a diet.
Justin knows me already.
Yeah, follow a diet, no alcohol or cheat meals, indoor workout, outdoor workout, and this is 45 minutes for each. Drink a gallon of water, take a progress picture, read 10 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at your life. Look at the other things that are priorities in your life. Can you do that? And can you do it forever? If you drop your activity, something's going to happen with cows in, cows out, right? So like if you can't hold this forever, expect that you're going to have some changes, right? I've had my clients specifically, or one of my clients who have done, I think I've had a couple, and I think it was like a family rivalry. What happened was it was like if a gallon's good, then more is better. And sometimes things remotely become unsaid, and then it became more and more and more. It's like, whoa, no, 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 not that much. Like we need to cut that back because then you get, all kinds of other issues. Gosh, yeah. Like you see good in it. You see good, and I think it was put out for free, right? So I think there's good
Mhm.
intentions behind it. It's like, yeah, this works, but it's definitely the who's the David Goggins. David Goggins. It's just like extreme. 75 hard. Why not? Why not? 20 years hard, or like you were saying, right? Long term. If you can't hold it up, don't expect to then continually keep up the progress from it, the results.
I mean, I think sometimes people see it sometimes as like a corrective, right, to like an extreme in the other direction. So like take a financial analogy, right? Like I don't even know if this exists, but like imagine, I mean, I know there are people who do like cash in envelopes or like, don't spend on a credit card for 2 months or something like that. Should it be the case that no one ever spends on the credit card for the rest of your life for no reason? Probably not, right? There are probably legit reasons to occasionally spend on a credit card, but like people will sometimes see it as like a
kick in the pants.
like
Yeah,
because they've been so far in the other direction, right? Like their credit card bills are out of whack, and now they cut them up. So, but I do tend to think, and most of us have seen, and kind of the culture glorifies like these dramatic, changes, where like something spontaneously dramatic happens, and then there's this magic shift, when generally kind of that slow and steady approach tends to be more sustainable. It's not that some people can't pull off the dramatic change, but it's less frequent than the slow and steady version.
yeah. I think there's something to a kick in the pants to gain traction on something. But then the people that keep that are like, all right, now let's fall to a level. They become realistic about that. They fall to a certain level. And also, I think the individuals that keep success from that, their lifestyle looks like it's set up for that. They had 90 minutes to train. They have a lifestyle that allows for the continuity of most of this stuff, right? Putting a square peg in a round hole with a stressful, business owner who's already hurting for time, and now you're like jamming these out. You can tell when behaviors are just like, this is not going to last, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think the rigidity of it gives people like really clear lanes, and maybe that's helpful. Kind of like, I think Carl, you talked about this on one of the podcasts with like diets. It's like you identify with your diet, and so it's a lot easier to be like, oh no, I can't have that because that's not inside my diet. So maybe that kind of attracts people, where it's like, oh, I have really clear boundaries, so I don't have to think or waste maybe like too much willpower, because it's like it's already a decision. But for whatever reason, like long term, like day 76, then you're back into like the real world where there's a lot more nuance. Yeah, that was just a thought.
Yeah, I think that's a
Yeah.
really good point. I think it you see that sometimes with like the the Whole30 or other things as well, where people will essentially outsource their boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm gonna sleep 5 hard. Well, I'm doing this 21 day detox, and then like friends and family will be more likely to I guess to listen or to like allow it for those 30 days, but it's a band-aid on what should be like a longer term boundary about like, hey, if you want to hang out, you can order whatever you want. Otherwise, you don't have to feel like anytime you're going out for brunch, someone's going to push something on you, or they're going to look at you weird if you're not doing a Whole30 and you refuse to have pancakes or something like that. So I think that's a good point. But I think very many people will use it as like a band-aid for boundaries, and then it's like, what happens when the 30 days is up or the 75 days is up? Like, how do you say to people like, I'm okay with not having that at this time? So
yeah, I like that outsourcing your boundaries.
Yeah.
It's like they're not developing the tools, they're like renting tools.
Yeah. And you hear it in their language too, Robbie. I mean, you've been through it enough where you're like, day 31, I can't wait till it's over. That's what the back end of it looks like, right? And then leading up to day 1, they're like, this is day 1 is tomorrow, and they're just like pizza, cupcakes, everything. I got to get everything because I'm, the next 30 days. So it's like it's end capped by these horrible behaviors, and that is definitely not the time where you want to try something like that, right? Yeah. Maybe the hard's too much. Maybe you do 75 flaccid or whatever it was, soft. Yeah. Like, we're gonna come up with our own version of it.
I bet James has a good one.
So I guess as someone who did one, but
oh no, sorry, go ahead. Please.
I would say so to make not on a summit, but like if someone did want to do one of these, building up to it would probably be a good idea. Going through it, being reflective of it, and then like you said, when you come out of it, have a game plan of what you're going to keep, what didn't work, or what you're going to change, and things like that, as opposed to having it be a landmark, right? You're here and you're gone, right? Because we know people are going to do them, right?
Right.
Stop them, but we can help them get the most out of something like that. I don't know what you guys think as far as like a good tentative to do that.
Robbie, I know you did nutrition, the podcast last time, and you do hear a lot of people, and I have too, like, I'm going to start a Whole30 January 1st. I'm dealing with clients that we have together, whether it's personal training, nutrition. They usually it's like, oh, Robbie's like, give me this many whole meals first before you would start it. Like, what would you say is a good number? Or is there one? Are people different? If this person can have, 15 whole meals in a week, then they're probably good to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, at least the way a lot of the stuff we currently do is structured. I mean, I'm a Whole30 coach. I still think the Whole30 can be beneficial and important. And a lot of the people who I work with are people who, they tried to cold turkey the Whole30 and they just weren't ready because they didn't have consistent grocery shopping times. They didn't have consistent meal times, and, they started too quickly. So, I mean, I would say very often it takes a couple months to get up to the point where you're even ready to do a Whole30. And, Amy, to answer your question, how many real whole food meals should you start with? Just kind of like we say with training, just the next level up from wherever you are. So like with someone's first food journal, if they submit it and it's like, well, they've got 3, okay, well, let's do 4 to 5 next week. But yeah, I mean, whether someone does a Whole30 or not, and it could be, Carl, to your point, it could be the same thing with 75 hard. Like, what's the thing that you're going to sustain after this? So like whether someone does a Whole30 or not, like getting them to the point where they're eating, I don't know, 14 to 16, 15 to 17, 16 to 18 real whole food meals a week, that's going to be like the rest of your life. And then whether you do a Whole30 or not, you're still more ready for it now with that foundation. And then the second thing is like, if it's 2 months leading up, it's 2 months on the back end too. It's 2 months like leading out. We don't just, post Whole30, it's not like, oh, go have a big pizza. It's like, oh, well, we're just reintroducing like certain yellow light foods and seeing how you're doing. And we're still not touching the red light stuff. And then we're making guidelines for what red light food introductions would look like. So for whatever thing you're looking to do, I would say try to think of what are the things you're trying to build up to that you're going to sustain for the rest of your life. So have like a good on ramp and then have a good off ramp, because really with no challenger, you're going to sustain it for like the rest of your life. What's the sustainable piece that you can keep in the mix?
I guess by nature, right? Challenge is short term, right? Otherwise, it would be called, you want to call it a challenge, right?
Right.
It's like that
Yeah.
program, you get an accumulation phase, maybe intensification phase, maybe a post-competition phase, and kind of then from there settle in after that into a new accumulation phase or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. Has a lot
What
of
do you
relevance because go ahead.
No, I was just curious. Like, I'm just thinking, like, what do you think attracts people to those short-term challenges, as opposed to, I guess, starting in a more sustainable way?
That's not sexy.
It's not sexy.
Do you
Not
think it's the
sexy.
knowledge? Like they just
Yeah.
don't understand it?
I think intensity, dopamine, community, this notion of like, I'm going to make a pledge to a thing, which, again, I get the pull of that. I get the pull of like the January, whatever thing you go for. Like, I get it, like turn over a new leaf, but I do think a lot of times it's, and I mean, sometimes it can be a launching pad for people to get in the right direction. But I think very often it's, it's exactly like Brandon said, it's not, or it's, the reason they go for it is because it's sexy, and the reason they don't go for the other stuff is because having imagine a challenge where it was like, do you have a consistent grocery shopping time each week? Do you have a consistent grocery list? Do you have consistent meal times? Do you sit down and chew your food? Like,
yeah. Do you reflect on your
what?
grocery list? And was that successful in your meal sourcing
Yeah.
last week versus this, right?
Yeah,
Because most people don't know how to live in the middle. It's a high, and then the high is followed by a low. It's like that, the sustainable stuff, the sipping the water, the working, that's in the middle. Everything is like, it's got to be the high. It's the dopamine, like you said. It's like deadlines. Yeah, getting close to a deadline. It's like,
Right.
I work really good when I get close to a deadline. Yeah, because you're waiting for that. You're waiting for that rush of dopamine to like to kick you up so you can actually action on these things, right? And that's, people live up there, and I've seen it, the diet jumpers and things like that, right?
and to tie it back to the Liver King, like, does anyone realistically think, without him doing steroids or like any one of his TikToks where he buys like 400 pretzels and then throws them in the garbage because wheat is bad, or like going to an MMA fight, does anyone think without the ostentatious like dopamine hit he would be anywhere near as popular? Probably not.
Right. No.
So like it's of a piece with that, right? Like if Liver King got on there with no steroids, no like gimmick, and was just talking about, hey, get out in the sun, walk a bit, eat some real whole food, maybe top it off with a little bit of organs here and there for some extra nutrient density. I don't know that he would have, like a tenth of as many followers as he does. So, he had to do the steroids and the ostentatious what have, but like, it's all bringing it back to like this, like Brendan was saying, like, it's got to be really high or really low. It's got to be this like immediate, urgent, like in your face thing. Otherwise, people don't pay as much attention.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to add to that. People Google Thor's training program. Okay. Chris Hemsworth training program. They don't Google Donald Trump's training program. Right. Like that's like you have to have something that those people want to aspire to Google that, right? Yeah, to look at that.
Which he's most likely on steroids as well.
Both of them, Donald Trump and Chris
Yeah.
Hemsworth. Yeah.
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 One thing I thought about
Maybe
with,
Donald for his hair.
yeah, with
Yeah.
Liver King, like if he had been forthcoming right from the get-go about steroids, do you think, not as far as like would he have been as successful or not, but do you think the message of the ancestral lifestyle would have been received? There's been much fallback where people would say, oh, he's on steroids, so like that discounts anything that he's doing.
I think it would have discounted a lot.
Yeah.
Not all of it, but it probably would have done more, not more, but some harm to the good tenets from the ancestral lifestyle, right? I'd like to think they're just like, then they just discount it, and you start attaching steroids to those habits and those things. I think it becomes confusing then, because you're like, well, if this was I thought was the right way, and this was associated with steroids, now I'm not sure what's the right way. Like, it's not always, we've been in the fitness industry for 14 years now. It's not always relevant that sunshine is important and that sleep is important, right? Like, I'm eating really good, and then you look at it and you're like, okay, there's a lot of potential here to make improvement, right?
Yeah.
My thought.
Yeah. There's not an immediate reward from eating one whole food meal.
Yeah.
Whereas there is from eating a highly palatable meal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pushing reward down the line. Let's pause here for a second.
Do you want to
I've
see my
put-
cat again? Do you forget?
Oh, yes, there you go. Look at that cat.
Everybody,
I've
holiday spirit.
The cat's dancing.
The cat is.
We put people on the weight loss four-wheeler, though, for the right reason.
Mm.
We say for the right reason, like a physique competitor, or somebody who does want to get lean for something. We're like, hey, okay, so it's our own almost custom version of a 75 hard. Be like, listen, this isn't gonna stick forever. We cool with that? And they're like, listen, I want to look really, really good for this date. I understand that I can't hold on to that forever. Okay. I can't. You could even parallel that with competition. I can't hold on to this games athlete style amount of volume, because it is against my health to a certain amount of time. Like, right. But like, and this amount of weight loss, this amount of stuff, but like, hey, all right, here's what you need to do. Sleep 8 to 10 hours a night, chew your food really well, get sunlight, walk 10 minutes after every meal. Here are your macros. Here's what I consider quality to be. Stick with it. And you need to do that within 5%. Here's your training. Never miss a day. Stress, keep it low. This is what that means. And I need that every single day for the next 60 days leading up to your stuff. And they're just like, all right, and then there we go. We did it, but we knew that it wasn't going to stick toward the back end, right? I think you have this want here, and whether they do it or not, gives you a good idea of like whether those wants were strong enough. But it's still worth, like, we're still working there. We're still doing this in a way that will probably do a lot less harm than some of these other things. But we can still have underlying conversations about what's after the 60 days, 90, 120, so on and so forth down the line. Yeah.
And usually all that stuff is all that extra stuff, like the topper, is built on the foundation that you'll need eventually, right? You know what I mean? Like weighing and measuring your food is like the topper on top of like 80 to 90% real whole food meals. Like,
yep.
Maybe they don't need to sleep 8 to 10 hours for the rest of their life, but certainly 7 to 8 hours. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
So it's like the topper, and to go back to the financial analogy, again, with a small percentage of people, maybe crypto isn't the best example now, but
no, do it.
No, but like, I mean, the most sound financial advice is like, always be making deposits, so when you need to make a withdrawal, you can like try to save. And it's like, okay, well, if someone has minimal to no debt, and they have a decent amount of savings, and they're spending within their means each month, and they want to occasionally invest in like one individual stock over here, or like they want to play around with crypto, or whatever the thing may be, I'd say that's kind of the analogy, right? Is like you're sitting on this solid foundation, And then it's like, oh, well, I want to play or experiment with these different things, but at least you have a solid foundation going for you, as opposed to someone who's like $100,000 in debt. It's like, oh, crypto is going to get me out of it.
Go
So like,
for it.
it's a similar thing with health, where it's like, we wouldn't just leap someone into the opposite end of the spectrum, right? We got to get that base or foundation in place. And then, yeah, okay, we can do the topper of like carb cycling and weighing and measuring everything, you know, for however many months. And but those are little toppers on top of a foundation of like the thing that will sustain you for the rest of your life. So
I have a question, guys. Kind of in the realms of your health and basic lifestyle guidelines, and all of you guys have gone through OPAC, so I'm going through it. But if somebody wants to start, as we're going into a new year and everything, and our basic lifestyle guidelines, if they're wanting to change one thing, like where would it start? Would you say sleep over eating habits? Would you say stress? Like if you had to put them in order of importance and somebody wanted to start with one thing, what would you say? What do you think? Where could they start? They're not trying to do everything.
Gun to head with, we have to pick one. It's not individualized.
Is it in order? Can we list them?
I would, yeah, like if I came to you and like, hey, these are my goals, and I've got 3 out of the 4 wrong. You know, I'm doing good with my stress. So what would be the next thing? Like, in order of importance, is my sleep more important than my eating? Is my eating more important than sleep? I get they're all kind of relative, but if somebody wants to make one change first,
I can tell you where I start to bias things. I start to really bias when I'm looking at everything. I start to really look at rhythm really strongly. And that's like your day to day, or meal times. Are you going to bed at the same time? Are you waking up at the same time? Because if we have complete chaos and rhythm, then adjusting sleep, I found, that becomes more difficult. And adding water into chaos becomes more difficult. I'd rather say, well, let's like, you're eating at this time, and now we have something we can work off of. You're eating at the same times. You're not wasting time throughout the day, as in like just watching an hour and a half of television during your lunch, during so like those are all classifications of like organizing your week and rhythm. I guess I'm classifying a couple things there. Then I've found that then putting sleep in, or just saying like, hey, that 3.5 hours of TV at night, now we worked into a better rhythm. Now I can push this in, and like, oh, you know how you wake up at this time? Now let's drink this much water at this time. So I always go rhythm, and then sleep and water are, I mean, we go lowest hanging fruit from there. The human is input from there. Like, I could say water, I could say sleep, but we could have a shift worker, and then we're just like, well, fuck this, throw sleep out the window. And then we're just like, we need to focus on these things. So like the human really dictates which direction we'll go from there. But you guys want to pitch in some stuff?
I mean, if I had to pick one, and if they were all equally deficient or whatnot, I would say sleep is the first one that I would look at improving, just because there's so much that's going on with the sleep, between hormones being released, the circadian rhythm, going on rhythm, right? Ran a little bit with that, your wake and sleep schedule, and just seems a lot of people, just in my experience, and maybe you guys experience too, that's something that's kind of like the sleep when you're dead, or I'll stay up till 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll wake up earlier, something like that. So yeah, I guess sleep would be my first place if I had to put an order in them, where I would start with somebody.
I like that. You do hear a lot. I'll sleep when I'm dead, but you're right. Maybe you're going to be dead earlier because you never did sleep.
Yeah. Beliefs, also conversations early on around your beliefs and where these behaviors are coming from, I think are super helpful. What they consider to be healthy food, what they consider to be good sleep, what they consider to be enough water, and where is that stuff coming from, right? Like, where's their identity attached to? Because then you're just going to be pulling teeth too. But those conversations happen concurrently along with these things. But because we can just rattle off right now. We could just shut it down. Let's shut the podcast down and just say, like, here's all the goal. Here, like 75 hard. Go ahead. Have at it. Just do this for the rest of your life, and you'll be good. But that's just not the way it works.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I would generally. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Justin. Go.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's fresh in my head because we had a conversation earlier on our call, Brandon, with alignment, which I believe OPEC actually added that inside of their BLGs. And basically, like, it's answering the question, are intentions clear? So do they understand how all these things are fitting into, I guess, their original purposes of doing so? Like, how them being able to see how these basic behaviors link to what their priorities are, what their goals are. Because yeah, if you don't have that, then trying to, I guess, plug these in, they'll likely just not adhere long term. So I mean, that's where my head goes first. But again, like, it really does come down to the individual in front of you and like what they're actually willing to start doing first. Like, maybe this is the lowest hanging fruit, but maybe this is the thing that they want to start with and feel comfortable and confident in doing so.
Like
So
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, you know, if I had to lay out like a pyramid objectively, or I think objectively, of like which are the, you know, biggest things like for
Mhm.
just general health in terms of BLGs, like mental and emotional health / stress reduction, whatever you want to call it, sleep, you know, then nutrition, then fitness, hydration would probably be in the middle of those two, and then maybe at the top would be supplementation. But you know, just like Justin was saying,
Mhm.
it depends, like where is someone willing to start, right? Like there might be this thing that we think is like the biggest priority in terms of starting, but if they're like, oh well, I'd much rather work on increasing my water intake by 10 ounces, or it's easier for me to go to bed by 15 minutes, or hey, I can't change my sleep and my hydration right now, but I can add 2 real whole food meals. You know, it really just depends on like, I would say, you know, to answer your question about like if people are asking what's the thing that I can do the most, or like what's the thing I should start with, look at those things that we've been talking about on this podcast today and other podcasts, and ask yourself which would be the easiest for you to start incorporating into your life. What would
Yeah.
present the least friction, because then that's going to create a domino effect of like, do that habit and then you do another habit, and then it,
Yeah, you'll find success in maybe that one that's the least friction, and then you can conquer the next one.
yeah. I mean, Amy, you and I have had it where like we've had people come in and, you know, we do their in-body and we talk about where their goals are, and it's like, you know, they want to lose 100 pounds, and clearly objectively the thing that they need to be doing is nutrition.
Mhm.
They're not ready for that yet. They want to work out first, and that's
Right.
okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Like if
Right.
that's, you know, as long as they're aware in the back of their mind, like, hey, that's what will eventually be needed, but like if the working out is going to get the habit ball rolling, why not?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, psychology of consistency and commitment, and you just start with that low piece, and just work your way up from there.
Thanks. I
This
like that.
original iteration I was thinking of this call was that Robbie and I would be on the same screen, and then Amy could be the ghost of Christmas past or fitness past. Who's the one with the chains? Is that the one with the chains?
But no,
Is that Future?
I'm not
Future's
sure.
the death one.
I think
yeah, right. So it shows him when he's dead.
Yeah.
No.
And
so.
then the
Amy's
fun
the
one's
past.
in the middle. Yeah. Amy's past, Carl's the present, and then Justin's the future. We just have them each on for 20
Yeah.
minutes to talk about
Amy's
fitness, past, present, and future. Yeah.
Amy's old school.
Yeah,
That's
she's
right.
old school.
Or what's
She is.
the Tom Hanks movie where like Amy comes in and like knocks you out, and then she's like, I'm the captain of this ship now.
Yeah, I'm the captain.
Dead
Whatever the
Poet
Yeah.
I'm the
Society?
captain.
That's not the movie.
Oh,
It's most definitely not the movie.
Dead
It's
Poet Society.
yeah. What?
No, that was with Robin Williams.
Yeah.
What movie?
I don't know. What's it?
I was just saying she's kind of like reinforcing our point there.
Yeah. It
It's
was
like
the
Captain
movie
Phillips.
with Frank
Struggle.
Sinatra. Yeah, that's
Shut
a good
up.
movie. Yeah. Yeah.
I got one. I guess, or unless you have something to move on to, Brandon.
No, go ahead.
I mean, we've been talking about this, I guess, a little bit indirectly, but as far as like obviously like 2020, like a new year is like always really big around goal setting, or I'm going to do this goal, and this goal was, I can't remember the statistic, but within the first few weeks, majority of New Year's resolutions have already failed. So whether someone set in like a fitness goal or a personal goal, work goal, whatever, I guess, what advice would you give them in setting goals for a new year?
Pay more attention to the past. Like reflect on the past, really dig deep. What worked well and why in the past? What didn't work and why? What goals did you set to achieve? Did you set any goals to achieve? What behaviors did you show that was coming true? If you didn't show behaviors to show that was coming true, what did you put in its place? I always go to that. Well, if you're not doing this thing that you said was in line with your goals, what were you doing instead of that? You know, and what was that serving? So I think looking really hard at the past will give you a good idea of like some tools that you might need to look into the future. So I'll start there and just start with the past. I'll leave it open to you guys. I've got other things, but
yeah, I got one. I mean, what I first think about is, and you've talked about this, Brandon, but like Stephen Covey, like start with the end in mind. So almost like reverse engineering, like reflecting on death. So like, how do you want to leave your mark basically on earth, or like, how do you want to go about living your life? What do you want people to say about you at your funeral, basically? And then that can kind of like set your aim as far as like, I don't know, it puts things in perspective in my opinion, and that's been helpful for me. And then maybe, yeah, reverse engineering from that. You can kind of identify like roles that are really important to you in life, and then also recognizing that like you as an individual is a role, and taking care of yourself will bleed into those things that are important to you. And fitness and health usually falls into taking care of yourself. So, and then from there you can kind of figure out what goals you could set that will help move you towards that. So I know that's kind of broad, but that's where my head goes.
Yeah, start with the end. That's what I'm gathering from it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, not the end, not the end of the goals, but like further down, you know.
Yeah, like deeper.
Yeah, if you set goals for the next year, maybe it gets more vague as it goes, right? But you could set 1 year goals and then set 3 and 5 and 9. Why not? Yeah, why not 80, right? And then just say like, well, how aligned are those things? And then, you know, the one could be like pretty clear, and then you work toward yourself and it gets clear and clear and clear of what you should do. But like looking further out, it's okay to have some vague, like, oh yeah, I'd like to retire at this age and this, and yeah, you know.
I think specifically with regard to like health and fitness goals, although I think this can apply to other stuff as well. As much as you can, like try to focus more on habits, not outcomes, for a few reasons. And not I mean, I think the idea of like looking at things broadly is important. I think having a direction of where you want to go is important. But let's say you want to squat a certain amount of weight, rather than focusing on like that's the goal, focus on like, okay, well, what are the things I need to do to get there? And like my goal is to be in the gym 4 days a week, or to have a consistent grocery shopping time, or have consistent meal times. When you focus more on like the habit rather than the outcome, the success comes from like the action itself. Like very often when it's like, oh, I want to lose 40 pounds, or I want to squat a certain amount of weight, or I want to get a muscle up, it's like, well, the reward's not going to come until you get the thing. But if you focus more on the habits necessary as your goal, it's like, well, the reward is kind of contained within that, insofar as like that's what you're setting yourself out to do. And those things will be the things necessary long term, because at a certain point, both nutritionally and fitness wise, there's not going to be more to do. Like, what are you going to do when
Yeah.
you lost all the weight you need to lose?
Mhm.
What are you going to do when you're as healthy as you need to be? What are you going to do when it's 40 to 80, where, if you've been training for a while, you're not going to make majority improvements in your strength and endurance capacity. You're just going to be trying to sustain. So like thinking of it in terms of it as like habits that you want to sustain, those being the things to focus on, and the outcomes being like a happy accident or result of that.
Yeah,
So
I
like,
think that's go ahead.
so you're saying like set the goals and then maybe write down, I don't know, 3 to 5 processes that will lead to that goal and focus on those habits basically, or processes or
Yeah.
actions.
Yeah, and then like do an overlap map with like, what are the things I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life? Like, no one, I mean, here's an example. No one's going to be weighing and measuring their food for the rest of their life. Isn't going to
Right.
happen.
Yeah.
But you are going to need to, as far as we can tell, unless Amazon starts tossing groceries in your window in a few years, like you're going to need to have a consistent grocery shopping time or meal delivery or something. You're going to need to have consistent meal times, like all these base building things. Those are like the pieces of the puzzle that you'll eventually need, and you can't directly, you have some voluntary control over like when you're going to reach your goal, but you don't at the same time in terms of how your body is going to work and what comes up in your life. But you do have direct, here's the other thing with habits versus outcomes. You have direct voluntary control over habits. You do not have direct voluntary control over outcomes.
Yep.
You can, the habits can sometimes, if you're doing things right, lead to the outcomes, but you have direct voluntary control over, am I going to go grocery shopping this weekend? You do not have direct voluntary control. Am I going to lose 40 pounds exactly in 3 months? You can, kind of, but not. So that's where I think it's worth focusing on habits more than outcomes, in my opinion.
So some would like you to think that they don't have control over grocery shopping or otherwise, right?
Right. Yeah. They're just a leaf blowing in the wind. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I think Justin was talking about start at the end was like the Simon Sinek start with the why, right? Like, okay, I have this goal, like, and really dive deep into that why, and do the 5 why drill. Like, ask yourself, why am I doing this? Okay, why about that? Why about that? And try to get to the root of it, and really understand, like you said, like losing weight. It could be, if it's keeping health and fitness related, like losing weight. There's going to be a lot of goals for people. Like, why do you want to lose weight? So, okay, like I want to be healthier. Okay, like why do you need to be healthier? Well, I want to be able to play with my grandkids when I'm older, things like that, and just finding something that's a bit more than just surface level. And if you can really resonate with that, and that truly means something to you on an emotional level, probably a higher likelihood for success. And I think some too, not necessarily like a mantra, right? But just like having that, like somewhere you see it maybe daily, whether it's a background on a phone or it's pinned up on a mirror where you see it and you're constantly reminding yourself of that, right? And that's getting more outcome focused, right? But just kind of getting more to the why behind it. And sometimes too, I mean, this is where having a coach is helpful, right? But even confiding this goal and this deep reason, whether it's with a coach, a partner, or a friend, just like, hey, like I'm probably going to slip up and fall on this. Like, can you help keep me accountable? This really means something to me. Those are things that I don't think a lot of people do, that just kind of set arbitrary goals. They don't go through that process. And it's reflective, right? Because you're talking about, Brandon, talking initially like reflective as like the past, and this is kind of reflective, like maybe moving forward on some things.
Yeah, most people haven't thought about their goals and motives with that kind of depth. I would say you ask why twice, and now we're at the level of thought that they have maybe put into it. And we talked about this earlier today with alignment. Is it like, as a coach and as a guide, I can't know more about you than you know about yourself. So my job is to ask questions and to be really curious about why it is. You ask somebody and they're like, well, I want to pick up my kids, or my grandkids. Why is that important? Why do you need to pick them up? What is this, like, so there's more to that. There's more to all of that. And if I were to tie it back into what Robbie was saying earlier about loving the process, and one of the red flags is hating the process, going the other way. Like when you look at somebody and they just hate the things that they're doing day in, day out, we've seen it. Like that's not going to be sustainable long term. Well, you can't just tell somebody to fall in love with the process, with walking every day in sunshine. And we've had people like, I hate water, don't like to drink water, right? Well, they may not just understand how it ties into what's important to them and what they value, but they may not even know what is important to them and what they value consciously. They don't even know their own motives. Nobody moves a muscle without a motive, but they don't even know why they do the things that they do. So you start to bring those things to light, and then you attach the fitness into those things. And now they've got some new tools. Now all of a sudden they like training and they're enjoying this process, and you can adapt some things. So anyways, yeah, I just saw some fun parallels between those two.
And do you think
That's one thing. Oh,
that's because the reflective process is uncomfortable, or they don't know, or they've been told something and they don't know why they've been told, but that I need to do this? And it's probably a bit of everything, but I'm just trying to figure out, like,
Yeah.
I guess in your opinion, and it's probably hard to nail down to one, right? But why is that reflective process not there for a lot of people?
All of that. Yeah, you were right on that. I think it's all of it. It's that reflecting on the past. Well, we're in the current. We're now. It's now. Whatever is important in this very moment to meet my needs. Like past mistakes, fuck it. Get out of here, past mistakes. I don't want to learn from that. Like, but it's the nature, I think, of a lot of people right now. It's the attention platforms and whatever I can get to get me dopamine right now, but reflecting with depth. And I think it comes with age and experience too, where you start thinking about years past as well too. Youth doesn't exactly like do a lot of like deeper reflecting on, like my 9-year-old son doesn't think about like, man, when I was 5 I made these decisions, right? Like that does come with some age there. Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question there, but yeah, a little bit of all of it. Yeah, I think it depends on the person there.
So like,
I was just thinking, just summing up, whether it's personal or whether us as a whole, as a gym, one of the things that I've really taken through that past, present, future this year is, and we've shown this as a gym, I think as a whole, is that passive reflecting. And sometimes it's hard to do that. Like, we were just talking about and understanding maybe where you have made mistakes as a person or us as a gym, but then that present where we make those changes and we develop the habits, and like Robbie was saying, and we bring about all these nice, wonderful changes. And then the present or the future, where not only do we make the changes, but personally in your own lives and us as a gym, I feel that we now teach and give the knowledge. And that's one thing I really love, just thinking about these past, present, and future, is not only do we keep it to ourselves, but we're actually teaching and hopefully giving knowledge.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, we've worked on that quite a bit over the past years, our purpose, vision, mission, values, and principles. And like once we've grown to the point where we can, thrive, it provide shade to others. And what does that look like? To have a greater impact in our area, or in that, when I say in our area, and we've changed the language of this, it's not just in our area, it's because we work with people remotely in nutrition and individual programming and stuff like that as well too. So like anyone we can reach our branches out to. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I like that. I think that's it. That's our time for the day.
Pretty good wrap up there.
Yeah. Do. We don't have any music. We don't have any
That's
stupid
good.
music.
Oh,
Yeah.
I could turn on the Christmas music really loud,
Nope. Oh, you're breaking
I thought
up.
you were
Can't
about
forget
to-
about
You're saying.
Christmas cat.
Yeah, can't
Happy
hear you. You're
Holidays,
cutting out.
everybody.
Cutting out.
Cutting
Merry Christmas, everyone. Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, everyone. And peace out from us at CrossFit South Bend.